If you are seeing this video, we aren't under lockdown from the government shutdown, so we're just gonna keep going as long as we can. Pete Hegseth and President Trump held a meeting with admirals and generals of all branches of the military, after flying them into Quantico from their stations across the world. There's much speculation about why they brought them home after the speeches were something that was live-streamed, and there doesn't seem to be an obvious reason for flying them home. The speech was a battle cry to 800 battle-tested leaders, staged against that epic Patton flag to evoke the grit of D-Day heroes, not Hollywood fluff. Hegseth didn't mince words. He called out the fat generals and DEI checkboxes that bloated the Pentagon with $800 billion black holes, while readiness diminished. The Government Accountability Office, or GAO, reports show that 60% of units were not combat-ready in 2024. His 10 directives? Ditch the dudes and dresses distractions, mandate pull-up-proof fitness for all, including admirals, revive shark attacks for raw recruit toughness, and fast-track legal shields so troops can act decisively without fear of witch-hunt court-martials. President Trump followed up like the boss he is, slamming Sleepy Joe for turning the military into a joke via endless Ukraine cash drains of over $200 billion, and open gates that allowed trendy Aragua gangs to turn our country into a third-world country. That invasion from within by a uniformless domestic enemy, the MS-13 and Venezuelan hit squads who've raped the American dream, is not some metaphor. President Trump's fix is to utilize cities as dual-purpose training arenas, where troops drill on urban ops while mopping up the chaos that the elites ignored, all backed by $1 trillion in 2026 spending to outpace Xi's hypersonics and Putin's drones. It's posse comitatus smart to legally liberate states, echoing Eisenhower but flipped against the invaders, not our citizens. The Posse Comitatus Act, which was passed in 1878, is a U.S. law that stops the military, like the Army or Navy, from acting like police to enforce laws inside the country, unless Congress or the Constitution specifically allows it. This law actually came about after the Civil War, when Southerners were really upset about federal troops enforcing civil rights in the South, so they pushed to limit the military's role in domestic life. Historically, this law has kept soldiers from policing civilians, even during things like labor strikes or civil rights protests, which meant the government had to rely on local police or the National Guard instead. There have been exceptions, like the Insurrection Act or disaster response laws, which lets presidents get around these restrictions in emergencies, such as riots or after September 11th. These days, there's a lot of debate about using troops for things like border security or protests. Some folks say the law protects democracy from military overreach, while others try to stop their involvement, especially to protect terrorists and illegal immigrants. Pete emphasized warfighting over what he called policing the globe, which echoed President Trump's America First doctrine. He warned about threats from both China and Russia, urging everyone to prepare for peer-level conflicts. But, interestingly, he avoided giving any specifics when it came to things like Ukraine aid or Middle East strikes. His tone was definitely commanding and personal, referencing his infantry background, mentioning traditions from Fort Benning. President Donald Trump was welcomed by Pete Hegseth with a handshake and plenty of applause. His speech started off by saying the attendees looked like they were out of central casting, and he proudly declared that there can be no higher honor than to serve as your commander-in-chief. His speech addressed familiar ground such as tariffs and Sleepy Joe, saying he had turned the military into a joke, and Pete gave a rundown of his first-term accomplishments. The whole thing lasted about 30 minutes, centered on a tough vision for what our military should be. One of the most striking moments came when President Trump said, "The military's core mission is supposed to be defending the homeland, not policing the globe." This signaled his intent to stay out of foreign conflicts and using our military for American safety, rather than cleaning up everyone else's problems. He warned that we are under invasion from within by a uniformless domestic enemy, explaining that this invasion referred to the millions of illegal immigrants who invaded our borders, including, as he put it, criminals, gang members, and terrorists who he said were enabled by Biden-Harris policies. He also cited cases like the murders of Laken Riley and Jocelyn Nungaray, describing this as a hidden threat even worse than foreign enemies. It erodes American sovereignty through crime, fentanyl, and by overwhelming our resources. POTUS promised mass deportations using the Alien Enemies Act, calling the situation an occupation that needed to be liberated. Then, President Trump said that, "We're going to use our cities as training grounds to get the military sharp and clean up the mess at the same time." Deploying troops at home against the enemy within is not just necessary for readiness, but essential to our sovereignty. This echoed his earlier calls for the military to get involved in protests and border enforcement. When it came to the budget and reforms, POTUS committed over $1 trillion to military spending in 2026, promising that Hegseth would soon announce major reforms to streamline acquisitions and expedite foreign military sales. Then came a pretty touching American loyalty ultimatum. Echoing Hegseth, Trump told any dissenters to leave the room right now with their titles, reminding everyone of their oath to the Constitution and Commander-in-Chief. He said, "If you don't like it, get out, because plenty of great patriots are waiting to step up." Trump's delivery was energetic, with that Patton-esque flag backdrop really adding to the whole patriotic vibe. The meeting wrapped up a pretty turbulent week, coming right after Hegseth fired a general over an Iran strike assessment. It all lined up with the administration's Department of War signaling a shift from defense to a more offensive posture. Conservatives loudly, "The age of entitlements is over." In the end, the event really crystallized the administration's vision. A leaner, meaner military, focused both inward on the borders and outward on rivals, all with the shadow of Patton looming large. It's time to drain the elite poison, arm the guardians, and make America lethal again. What's your take on the next move? Mass deports or urban patrols first?